What is up, Fortnite crew? Today, I have a pretty goofy video. You know, the other day, I saw JoeUX9 upload a video about the top 5 worst megas in the game. And I could do that same video with my opinion on it, but I didn't want to. I wanted to do something a little different today. I wanted to talk about megas that just disappointed me because I thought they were going to be a little bit better than they were. We're going to talk about that today. I'm just going to go through the 5 megas that disappointed me in Pokemon Champions and try to come up with at least a mild concept that we could build off of to possibly build a actually good team with them. Because the fact of the matter is all of these megas are just suboptimal. Like, even if you try to use them at their best, it feels like they're not pulling their weight. Like, you could be using a different mega. But yeah, you know, if you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe. Let's begin with Mega Feraligatr. Mega Feraligatr is really disappointing because it has a really incredible attack stat. Matter of fact, let's pull up a damage calc here. Let me show you something real quick. Feraligatr, Mega Evolved with Double Edge, because it absolutely has to run Double Edge, has one of the most devastating hits in the game. Where's Double Edge? Why can't I? Double Team, Double Iron Bash, Feraligatr. There it is, Double Edge. So Dragon Eyes gives it a 20% boost in power, and most of the time Feraligatr has to run Adamant Nature anyways. Let's take a look at the damage that that thing's capable of doing to... Let's go with a Mega Charizard Y, right? Mega Charizard Y drops to no attack investment Adamant Double Edge for Mega Feraligatr. That sounds like there's no reason it should be bad at all. But the fact of the matter is, it still is bad, and it's because it's just not fast enough. And like bulk-wise, it's a little bit questionable. Here's the thing, right? When you use Mega Feraligatr, you get Dragon Stab. When you use something like a Mega Salamence, which is going to come in the future, you get Flying Stab. And Dragon Stab is good. It's one of the better offensive types, but hitting nothing for super effective makes it a little bit questionable. Especially with like the amount of fairies in the metagame, or at least the main fairies in the metagame, Floette and Sylveon, it becomes a little bit more difficult to use for Alligator because it's going to have to, even though it wants to be paired with the Redirection user, have to eat Dazzling Gleams and have to eat Hyper Voices from Sylveon. It wants to run Dragon Dance. It could also run Swords Dance if it really wants to, but it wants to run Dragon Dance because it does need to start outspeeding things. And that's where the major issue comes. If you run an Adamant Nature and you run Dragon Dance, if you max out your speed, you hit 139. 139 isn't quite fast enough to really get anything done. I would argue that what Feraligatr wants to aim to do is probably outspeed Pokemon like Frostlass and Sneasler at +1, and if possible, Pokemon like Aerodactyl, which hit 130. And if we're like really getting into it, Delphox, which is 134. Timid Nature hits 204. If you Dragon Dance once with an Adamant Feraligatr, 130 times 1.5 is going to come out to 195. Just a bit slower than Delphox, right? Now, what you have to do is switch to a Jolly Nature, and you get to 143. 143 times 1.5 is actually, that's enough. You hit 214 speed. That is enough. If you want to outspeed Delphox specifically, you gotta hit 137 speed, right? So we can decrease the speed, and now we have a whole 27 investment. The major issue is that we're now no longer running that Adamant Nature, which means that our attacks aren't quite as strong as they were before, right? Jolly, Adamant Double Edge is not one-shotting the Charizard. However, we are getting close to where we want to be, right? 27 speed, Jolly Nature. We can throw a little bit of attack investment to guarantee the one-shot into non-bulky, and then throw the rest into just HP or something, right? That's not terrible. This is like a good start for using Feraligatr. Dragon Dance, Double Edge, I guess Waterfall or Liquidation, depending on what you want. Waterfall gives you the flinches, Liquidation is just a generally stronger move. You probably want that. And then Protect. Water and Dragon together are pretty good. However, as like strong as Feraligatr hypothetically is, it's going to run into a lot of issues. For Alligator wants to be put next to some kind of redirection user like a Sinistcha, because it lets it play under Trick Room if it really needs to, because it's not that fast. For Alligator also, without that speed boost, is going to be prone to having to take hits from Garchomp, Sneasler, even like, you know, some fast fairies like Floette in the metagame, or like a Tailwind Sylveon. It's just that even if you try to really make the best possible for Alligator, it's gonna kind of fall short. And it's also competing for like a water type spot with like Basculegion, which is basically impossible. And if it's not competing with, you know, a water type spot for Basculegion, then it's competing with Pelipper or Rotom Wash or Toxapex. Toxapex, arguably one of the better water types in the format right now. It's just that like a physical water type, that role's taken. Special water type, you know, you're not doing that. And dragons, there's better options. For Alligator is one of the more difficult Pokemon to like actually work with. Is it like a solid mega hypothetically into Charizard? Yeah, actually Charizard is a mega that does not want to have to deal with for Alligator, because like I said, you do just one shot it with a little bit of investment, but you know, Charizard tends to have some kind of damage control with it, like Intimidate or a fake out user or like speed control, and you're still not enjoying taking the Solar Beam. Like, look, 31 HP investment and you're still 2-hit KO'd by Solar Beam. That's no fun, right? Also, Charizard just gets bulkier and bulkier. Like 31 HP isn't like super uncommon on this guy. Now your Double Edge is a roll to KO out of your favor. It just tends to fall short. You can pair it with Kingambit, you know, deter away the Intimidates, deter away Incineroar for Kingambit because you have Liquidation. There's ways to make it work. I would argue that this is probably the best starting point. Just Kingambit for Alligator, and frankly, some kind of Tailwind user. Honestly, put it on a Whimsicott, run it with a Charizard, put it as an alternate. But now you have two Megas, you have two Dragon types. Wouldn't you rather just have the Garchomp? You kind of run into that wall. You run into that wall where you just wish it was a Garchomp a lot of the time. So that's a little bit of an issue with it. This channel is partnered with Gamersupps. If you want to support my work and get great tasting drinks, you can order Gamersupps through my link in the description down below, or with code Moxie boosted at checkout for 10% off. Gamersupps is a caffeinated product that I recommend only to my 18+ viewers, but my link will send you to their caffeine-free product section just in case. Every product purchased through my link supports my channel financially, so I'd really appreciate the support. Now back to the video. Mega Greninja. Now, this team has actually hit Champion tier. The team prior to Pokemon using it did hit Champion tier, but Pokemon was using a rental code that did make full use of Mega Greninja. But I think my main issue with Mega Greninja is that Mega Greninja is an Ice-type Pokemon, and that's really disappointing when we have Frostlass. I know what you're saying. No, Mr. Boosted, Mega Greninja is not an Ice-type Pokemon, it's a Water Dark. Let's think about like what we're really going to do with this Mega Greninja. Mega Greninja wants to click Ice Beam a lot of the time because, frankly, that's a really good offensive type. Ice Beam, Protect, Hydro Pump, Dark Pulse. Like, these are good moves. You could also drop Hydro Pump if you really want to for some kind of coverage move. I believe the one that succeeded was Extra Sensory, which does allow for it to deal with Pokemon like Toxapex and Sneasler, which are pretty common in the metagame right now. But the main issue is that it's just outdamaged by like a Life Orb Greninja, while also being a lot more flexible as Life Orb Greninja. The fact of the matter is, like, it's not bulky. It is fast, but it's not like super duper fast, and it doesn't hit quite hard enough. If you're trying to run it as like a mega to patch certain matchups, like maybe you don't have a good Garchomp matchup, maybe you don't have a good Charizard matchup, I would argue that, like, you know, for all the techs Greninja's capable of doing, you can just do Frostlass instead. And, you know, this actually goes to show that it's kind of true, because the team that Greninja succeeded with, the secondary mega was the Frostlass. I think that Frostlass does everything Greninja does, but just a little bit better, because Frostlass sets up snow, allowing for it to have a spread blizzard, right? Frostlass gets to keep its secondary stab on its ghost type moves, where Greninja has the ability Protean, and as cool as that is, it has to give up one of its typings to use another move, even if you use an existing typing. If you use Dark Pulse, you're going to lose stab on your Hydro Pump, right? You lose stab on Hydro Pump, and you have to switch out to reset it. You can use it in its base form, pick up a KO on like a Garchomp with Ice Beam, and then Mega Evolve, and then get a second, you know, type change with the next Protean activation, but it is just super underwhelming. I think that the team that it's on makes sense. The team that succeeded with Greninja on it is the Frostlass Greninja, like Excadrill Sand weird hybrid team with a Kamo on it. And that's because Greninja just softens up the team and then like Sand wins in the back. Same thing with the Frostlass. You know, we've seen Frostlass Sand succeed before. It's just that Greninja feels like it's the worst of the two regardless. And there are certain things that Greninja can do. It can turn into a rock type and use its physical attacking stat. But then once again, base Greninja with a Life Orb or a Focus Sash is going to get you more value on that front while still hitting. Like 122 speed is faster than the majority of Pokemon in the game. It's not faster than Delphox or, you know, Aerodactyl or Gengar, Mega Gengar, but you get more value out of the Sash anyways, and you're outspeeding 99% of the game anyways. So Mega Greninja, a little bit disappointing. I think that, yeah, Mega Greninja on Sand makes sense, but it does feel like it is a little bit carried by the rest of the team. So that is a disappointing Mega in my opinion. Chestnut. Chestnut is a Pokemon that I didn't expect to actually be all that good, but I figured to be a little bit better than it is. 88 HP and 172 defense is ridiculous physical bulk. And the thing that really disappoints me about Chestnut the most is that Chestnut entered the game when it was a very physical metagame. Everything was a physical attacker, and Chestnut was the bulkiest of the bulkiest Pokemon in the game, you know? It has the ability Bulletproof, which is great. It makes it immune to Sludge Bomb. It makes it immune to Shadow Ball. It literally walls Gengar. If Gengar was a little bit more common in the metagame, which it might be making a resurgence because of the MDB team, then maybe Chestnut would have a role. It even technically is capable of walling Charizard because Mega Charizard Y. Here's the funny thing. Mega Charizard Y runs Weather Ball, Heat Wave, and Solar Beam right now. It doesn't usually run flying type moves. Like 99% of the time it's not doing that. And Mega Chestnut has access to Wide Guard. Wide Guard and Bulletproof allow for Chestnut to wall Charizard entirely. If you keep clicking Wide Guard, Charizard is like physically incapable of KOing you, which is really funny. However, if you're just using your Mega to Wide Guard and wall Charizard while it would really rather be doing something a little bit more proactive, like, I don't know, maybe clicking Body Press with its 172 defense stat, that'd be cool. But it just seems like Mega Chestnut doesn't really get to do much in that front. Wide Guard, Body Press, Spiky Shield is probably pretty good. That final move is probably going to want to be a Grass move. However, Grass doesn't hit too much in the metagame. Chestnut would be a really good answer to Rain, as it's able to beat Archaludon and Swampert at the same time. However, and also Basculegion. Like, Basculegion does not like having to deal with a Wood Hammer Chestnut. But the existence of Pelipper, being able to just one-shot it with a Hurricane because of its, like, unfortunate typing, really brings it down and makes it so if you want to use Chestnut as a Rain answer, you better have some answer to the Pelipper, because otherwise they'll just pin you on the board and then Chestnut doesn't get to do much. I would say that Chestnut does have potential. It does, but it's one of the, like, it's gonna be really hard to unlock that. I think that when Mega Chestnut gets access to Rillaboom as a partner, there is a way that it can cook, and that's because base Chestnut also like to pair itself with Rillaboom with Belly Drum and Grassy Glide. It still has access to both of those moves, and Mega Chestnut has a much higher attack stat than base Chestnut, as base Chestnut's attack stat is just 107. This thing's 137 with also far superior bulk. You know, 88, 122, 75 as compared to 88, 172, 115. It would work. It would work. It just probably isn't the best Pokemon. So yeah, Mega Chestnut, very disappointing. Chimecho, this thing does nothing. I was really hoping that we were finally going to get a Steel-type Pixelate or a Steel-type Liquid Voice to make it so Chimecho had, you know, a stab Steel-type move that was spread in Hyper Voice. That would have been really cool. However, it just has Levitate. Now, this isn't to say that Chimecho is completely useless. There's no Bronzong in the game, making Chimecho basically a Bronzong. But once Bronzong gets added to the game, Chimecho's one and only niche in being able to wall, I guess, sand is gone. You know, that just doesn't exist anymore. Yeah, Chimecho is pretty disappointing. It does technically beat a couple of duos in the game. It beats Whimglim, which is Whimsicott Glamora. It does wall that. That doesn't really matter, because what are you going to do? You're going to Trick Room on them, and then you have like a Chimecho as like your main offensive attacker. 135 special attack is pretty nice, but when you're mostly clicking Flash Cannon and like Psychic, it's not hitting as hard as you really wish it would. And what really makes it worse is that Chimecho, if when Indeedee comes around, Chimecho could have been good if it were able to use Psychic Terrain to boost its expanding force. But the issue is, because it's levitating and it can't hold an item like, you know, an Iron Ball to touch the ground, it actually doesn't get access to full power expanding force. It's an interesting Pokemon. There's a couple of things that it can do. I like using Copycat Boom Burst with a Sylveon, but that's such a niche interaction that like is mostly just meant to be like a gimmick and like a meme. It has Icy Wind. Technically it walls Garchomp and beats Garchomp with Icy Wind. You could use it for speed control, but like it wants to play Trick Room. This mon just genuinely does nothing in the metagame right now, and that's a little disappointing, you know, just a little bit. Dragalge. Dragalge is a Pokemon that once again is just outdamaged by its base form, and that results in some nuances. Base Dragalge is able to outdamage Dragalge due to the fact that with adaptability, it just hits harder. And the special attack boost that Dragalge gets in its Mega form isn't that significant. It goes from 97 to 132. You know, that's a good bump, right? What was that? That's 35-point stat bump. But adaptability doubling the power of stab moves means that it's just going to hit harder in the base form. That being said, Mega Dragalge does have some interesting niches, like the fact that it is one of the few good toxic users in the metagame. But everything that Dragalge wants to do, you know, some people have been using Dragalge as a way to beat Floette with Calm Mind and also Mega Staraptor. Mega Staraptor just does not beat Mega Dragalge if you play it right. That's something that Toxapex does. Basically, Dragalge is just a really expensive Toxapex that isn't quite as physically defensive. It does have Regenerator, right? And it does have good physical bulk, but when you look at Toxapex's physical bulk, it's 50, 152, 142 on the special side, 65, 105, 163. It does have the superior special bulk by a large margin. The physical bulk, not even close. Toxapex wins that, and it's a mostly physical metagame. Toxapex also has access to more, you know, important support moves like Wide Guard and Infestation. Dragalge just can't compete. Dragalge is kind of an offensive Toxapex. Yes, it doesn't have access to Baneful Bunker, and it does like to click Toxic. It doesn't get Infestation, which is really disappointing, but you do have like a strong Draco Meteor and a Sludge Bomb. Really, that's all Dragalge is going to do is click Draco Meteor, Sludge Bomb, and Toxic. It's going to want to pair with Incineroar. It's going to want to pair with like a lot of pivoting mons to keep it healthy, but just doesn't really hit much in the metagame. Let's think about like a metagame team right now. The standard big six with like Charizard, Basculegion, Aerodactyl, Garchomp, and Kingambit. Like these Pokemon, out of all of them, let's see the matchups. Yes, a Draco Meteor would do a lot of damage to a Charizard Y, not enough to one-shot it though, so you're kind of out of luck. You're going to be 2-hit KOing with Sludge Bomb. You do wall Charizard though, you have great special defense, and you're not going to be taking much damage from Weather Ball. I can actually show you that one. Dragalge, Mega, 32 HP. You know, Weather Ball, Charizard's strongest move, is barely a 3-hit KO on you, if that. That's nice, but beyond that, it doesn't really do much into that team. It's going to be a secondary Mega regardless of how you kind of cut it because of that. It doesn't hit Kingambit. Kingambit completely walls it. It doesn't hit Basculegion because, frankly, Basculegion's going to be able to last respects it before it can go for damage. And like Garchomp is just like a negative matchup if Trick Room isn't active. Dragalge really needs Trick Room to be an offensive threat, frankly, but it also doesn't really want to be a Trick Room sweeper. It wants to just be like a fat Pokemon that can pivot in and out toxic things and get value that way. You know, sort of slow burn the game like a Toxapex would. This has a place in the metagame. However, it's always going to be a secondary Mega. And I really think that all they had to do was just give this thing adaptability again, and it would be so much stronger. Regen is nice. However, this metagame is just not kind to Dragalge. It really just isn't. Like, it doesn't touch much in the metagame right now. If there are more fairy types added soon, like if the Tapus come around in like an update or two, I could see Dragalge actually being quite useful into those. But as of right now, it's just super underwhelming. But yeah, I just want to talk about those Pokemon, just 5 really disappointing Megas, and a couple of ideas as to how to use them. Like I said, Dragalge is just going to be like an Incineroar, Sinistcha sort of team. And honestly, if you really want to, I think that it pairs well with a Mega Staraptor. You use one or the other. Dragalge does well into fairy types, and Raichu, where Staraptor does well into like sand and like other teams like that. So yeah, just my thoughts on these 5 disappointing Mega Pokemon. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed, leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you guys want me to talk about in the next video. You know, I just want to have like these little discussions every once in a while. See ya.